Well, it's a delight to have back with us today. David Limbaugh certainly needs no introduction, and what a joy to talk to him about his new book, The Great Destroyer, Barack Obama's War on the Republic. And if you remember, David was here in the Rogue Valley several months back speaking, and he's authored quite a few books. You see him all over the place. You hear him all over the place. And let me encourage you to check this book out at Barnes & Noble, online at Amazon.com. He has really hit the mark, and the reviews on this book are really something else. David, what a joy to have you with us, my friend.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, not a problem. You know, I started reading your book, and I jumped clear to the back first because I went to the Fast and Furious. I wanted to see what you had to say about that in light of Eric Holder now being held of criminal contempt of Congress. Let me ask you this. First of all, you really go after the president saying that he is just literally out to destroy America. And those are hard statements, but it appears that he is. I mean, who is behind this guy, and where did he come up with this agenda?
Well, let me be clear here, to use his phrase. I didn't say he is out to destroy America. I don't think that's anywhere in the text. What I say is that he's implementing policies that are destroying America. Now, he's trying to implement those policies to fundamentally change America, and he's changing it in a way that I would consider destruction. He would probably consider it a socialist Marxist utopia, but I consider it destruction. I don't say his purpose is to employ the Cloward-Piven strategy to create such chaos that everything falls and then he rebuilds it in his image. No, he's already doing it. I just think he's a radical leftist ideologue that is implementing policies consistent with his ideology and which will take us to a place of national destruction. Specifically, I mean, a reasonable case can be made that he's trying to destroy the country. I don't say that. I go back and forth wondering about it, because when he's preventing us from stopping the most preventable, predictable financial catastrophe in human history, you got to wonder if he isn't trying to destroy us. But I don't go there. It's not necessary to go there, because you make the case anyway by virtue of what he's doing. Okay. and what results it necessarily will have.
Do you think he came into office with this in mind, from the standpoint that he believes that his ideology, that somehow this thing will catch up with itself and it'll right itself?
Okay, now I'm not sure what you're asking me.
Okay,
what will right itself?
Well, I mean, if he keeps going down this path of increasing the deficit, handing out free money, and his policies, that somehow America will overnight just snap out of it and turn around?
Well, I do think these diehard Keynesians think that the only way you can stimulate an economy is, and the only way the private sector can move is if the government, in its infinite wisdom and unlimited resources, can infuse capital and know-how into business and cause growth. Now, they apparently don't recognize that in so doing, even if their cockeyed ideas worked to create some multiplier effect, it wouldn't really be worth it because we can't afford it. Their policies are prohibitive. I mean, you look at Henry Morgenthau, Secretary of Treasury under FDR, and he said, we have spent more money than anybody's ever spent for the last 8 years. We haven't done a thing to stimulate jobs, and yet we've gotten ourselves in incredibly dangerous debt. At least those guys learn from their mistakes. Obama does this with Stimulus One, and then he wants $50 billion on shovel-ready jobs after laughing about the fact that he didn't have any the first time after having promised that he would. And after having promised that unemployment would stay below 8% by the end of 2010 if he did this, and it didn't. And then he says he wants Stimulus Junior, i.e. the American Jobs Act, $447 billion to do this all over again. And he says it with a straight face, and his liberal colleagues in the Senate, who have not passed a budget for 1,100 days, apparently because they don't want to be held accountable any more than he does, because he's never come up with a plan for entitlements. His budgets have never cut spending below $1 trillion deficit levels, even out for the next 10 years. What in the world are they thinking? I mean, it's totally illogical, but they come back. They're fixed in their ideology. Their schooling and their mentoring says this is how you get an economy to work. If the empirical evidence comes back and says it didn't work, their response is not, oh, I got to reconsider this. My professors were full of it. They say, obviously the problem was bigger than we thought it was. Bush lied about how big the problem was, or we didn't apply a big enough spending package. That's the way these people think, and that's the best case scenario. The other alternative is to believe they are literally doing it on purpose to destroy America. It's your take. I mean, I don't go there. I mean, I wonder myself. I don't know.
Yeah, but
either way, they're doing it.
All right. All right, so they can do the blame game, Dave. David, for a long time, as you said, the evidence now is proving that their policy isn't working. Do you think they're fearful of this thing failing at all?
When you say of this thing failing, do you mean their election?
No, I mean of America failing. In other words, we cannot afford this. Don't they get that at all? I mean, there's plenty of blame the ground. They can blame the Bush administration. They can blame big government or big business, and the list goes on. The fact of the matter is, we're running out of money. Don't they see that?
No, but it's mind-boggling what must go on in their heads. Again, I don't know what they think, but it's whatever they think. They're either trying to do this or they're impervious to facts. They always accuse us of being fact challenge, reality challenge, science averse. Yeah. And the truth is, what they're doing is destroying America. We have a 2 to 3 year window to get our entitlements under control. We got $100 trillion of unfunded liabilities. And Paul Ryan has presented a plan, and I show this in chapter 6 of my book, The Great Destroyer, juxtapose that against the Democrats' plan. And I want to point out here, the Democrats don't have a plan. And when Paul Ryan interrogated Timothy Geithner in Congress, he said, look, you guys, your budget for the next 10 years has deficits of $1 trillion a year. And Geithner claims we stabilize this problem, the economy, over the next 10 years. And after that 10 years, and by the way, they call stabilizing $10 trillion in extra debt. Now think about that.
Wow.
But then, and they're assuming they're putting their finger on the dike. But then when Ryan says, what happens after that 10 years, it goes straight up vertically, off the charts, skyrockets back because you guys don't have a plan. Geithner's only response was, we don't like your plan because you don't take care of seniors or middle income people. And Ryan says, to the contrary, we cover in Medicare those 55 years old and older, and we take care of those younger with other options, more expansive market options and that type of thing. And we have a block grant type of arrangement for Medicaid. And we're going to work on Social Security, though he couldn't get all the Republicans in line on that. And you show those charts, and Ryan's plan brings it into solvency, and they don't even deny that it does. They just say, we don't have a plan. And Geithner says, and Ryan says, you're lying to the American people. You're telling them you have this under control, and you don't even have a plan on the chalkboard. This is unbelievable. To me, that we are committing national suicide if we reelect this guy. And then consider what he's doing to domestic energy, what he's doing with Obamacare, what he's doing to business, and what he's doing to our values and our national defense, all of which I meticulously cover in The Great Destroyer.
Yeah, we're talking to David Limbaugh, and of course his latest book is called The Great Destroyer, and let me encourage you to take a look at this. He breaks it out in several chapters, and Obama's war on America, his war on the economy and business, the war on the disobedient, the war on the culture, even on the war of guns. You know, David, we're at a point now where I think a lot of Americans are waking up. And I think now with the Supreme Court ruling, are we in a judicial crisis? I mean, we got an attorney general that's now been brought up on criminal contempt charges of Congress. I don't know if the House is going to have him arrested or not, because it would take his department to kind of see that all the way through. And we got a decision coming out of the Supreme Court. It's got everybody scratching their head. I mean, are we in a judicial crisis?
Well, we are in a place in our history where the Constitution is on very tenuous, shaky grounds. The Supreme Court has expanded it so much through the years, the Commerce Clause, the taxing power, and there's virtually no limits, it seems, anymore on federal power vis-a-vis the states and vis-a-vis anything, vis-a-vis the citizens. And so this week dealt two severe blows to liberty and the constitutional scheme of limited government. With the immigration case, where Judge Roberts severely disappointed all of those of us who believe that he was an originalist. And then the Obamacare ruling, where he engaged in contortions to pretzelize the Obamacare bill into something that no one intended. That is, it was a penalty. It envisioned a penalty for people to be assessed against people who didn't buy insurance. And they redenominated it. He redenominated it, recharacterized it as a tax so that he could say, under the taxing authority in Article 1, Section 8, even though the Commerce Clause is going to be, we're going to say the Commerce Clause doesn't authorize the Congress to force people to buy insurance. It does, the taxing power authorizes them to tax people who don't. And they didn't even present it as a tax. The Congress didn't. And then there's some ambiguity about how the administration treated it. Obama denied to George Stephanopoulos that it was a tax. So this was fraud in the inducement, in the legislative process. This was not a tax. For them to come back and later say it was, and for Justice Roberts to go through these contortions to declare it was a tax in order to save this from constitutional fail is abominable to me. We're talking, we don't want to interfere with the will of the legislature. Well, in the first place, the will of the legislature was perverted in the process, and Obama made a complete corrupt mess about how that was passed against the people's will. So almost 60% of the people reject this socialized medicine nightmare. And Roberts has basically said that we're going to treat this as a tax, even though the Congress didn't. So after the fact, retroactively, he treats this as a tax when it was not intended that way. And the other four justices, I think, were outraged. I think if we were really to get inside their heads or what they talk about to each other, this case was personal. I bet you they are outraged at Roberts. A lot of times these justices don't get mad at each other. This one is very big. What can they conceivably not do now as long as they redenominate things taxes?
David, let me fast forward just for a moment to Fast and Furious. And of course, we've been watching this thing being drug out by the hearings there, well over a year. Now they have voted to put him in contempt of Congress. First time ever, by the way, criminal contempt. Is that just like a public spanking? Is that all that is? I mean, it would take his department to do anything about it.
I think that it's important that, whether it's symbolic or not, that they did give him a public spanking, because there is no accountability in this administration. Eric Holder and Obama constantly play the race card. We recall that Holder said the reason Congress was going after him on Fast and Furious was because it was a way to get at Obama because they are both African Americans. Now, that is so outrageous and so destructive of the social fabric and of race relations and of political harmony, to the extent that that's even theoretically possible anymore. It is so disturbing that they do this. The truth is, he is in contempt. He will not comply with congressional subpoenas and document requests. He will not turn over thousands upon thousands of documents. And what is the reason he won't? There's nothing sensitive in there. There's no national security question involved or at issue here or in jeopardy. This is a case where we already know that he lied. He got caught twice lying, bald-faced lies to Congress. He first said he didn't know anything about the gun walking. He hadn't heard, Holder said he didn't know anything about Fast and Furious. In his testimony in May, he said he learned about it about 2 weeks before. In fact, internal documents and emails showed that he knew about it. He learned about it 10 months before. Also, he said he lied when he said to Congress that his predecessor, Michael McCasey, had been briefed on the gun walking situation in Wide Receiver, the Bush plan that was dramatically different from this plan. And so the Justice Department sent a letter to Congress on February 4th saying that it was unaware of Fast and Furious. In fact, they were caught also dead to rights in a lie. Now, all these lies, Holder says, were merely inadvertent, just accidents. when specifically these lies were told to cover up the involvement and the knowledge of the Justice Department. And if they have nothing to hide, why don't they just reveal these documents? I dare say they do have something to hide. They were up to something. It might have been in the conception of Fast and Furious to walk guns across Mexico through straw purchasers without telling the Mexican authorities, unlike on Wide Receiver, keeping them in the dark, which caused an international diplomatic incident and resulting in the death of 200 Mexicans and Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. This reckless scheme could only have worked to get our authorities closer to the Mexican drug lords and cartels if crimes had been committed, people had been hurt or injured after the crime had been committed and guns were found on the scene. So the only way this could have happened is if our guns are sent across Mexico through across the border through straw purchasers, and somebody gets hurt or killed, which is exactly what happened. Is it worth it? Was that what they really intended? And why, if they intended it, why did they intend it? Well, some speculate the reason what they intended was to gin up support for this reinstituting the assault weapons ban. These people are fanatic gun control people, just like they're fanatic environmentalists, just like they're fanatic deficit spenders, fanatic against national defense, people who want to undermine our military superiority, just like they're fanatic abortion proponents. So it's not unreasonable to infer that these people were trying to do this as a scheme to get gun control measures implemented. Look at all these guns. Immoral amount of guns went across the border and people were killed when they had schemed to make it all happen in the first place. Look how sinister that is. Okay, let's assume that's not what they were doing. Well, then what in the what were they doing? What possible reason? What would you do to one of your kids? What would you do to one of your employees if they came up with such a cockamamie, reckless scheme that could only have worked after people were killed? I mean, really think about it. Yeah. How are they going to trace these back to the drug lords if they don't allow the ATF to trace them? And they didn't allow it. The only way was to find these on the scenes, crime scenes, after the crimes had been committed, people had been injured, I say again. And so what happens? The ATF and the Justice Department reward the people who are in main justice, who are the political appointees of Obama, reward them. Give them promotions, move them up, move them to D.C., and they punish the whistleblowers. That's the kind of corrupt, crony justice system we have going on in this country under Obama and Holder. It's just that simple.
Is the president's fingerprints on this case? Is his fingerprints on Fast and Furious? I mean, is that
we don't know. But you have to wonder what is so sensitive, what is so important that must be kept from the public's view that they're willing to get themselves into a contempt citation right before the election. I dare say it's damaging enough to this administration that they are willing to look bad on this cover-up because they would look worse if they turned over the documents before the election. That ought to give us all pause.
All right, so I guess the House could have them arrested, but what does that do? I mean, is that just, they almost...
Oh, well, no, I mean, I don't put any stock in any of that. I just think it's important that they held him in contempt. Even if there's nothing they can do, even if it's a symbolic act, it's better than doing nothing.
Right.
They have to make a public statement that he is acting, that Holder is acting lawlessly, and that he's doing it with the full support and collusion of Obama. That's important. It's just one more thing that Republicans can cite as evidence that this lawless gang of community organizers who play Chicago politics on a national level ought to be defeated in November.
Wow. All right. I know that you cover a lot of things. Again, we're talking to David Limbaugh about his latest book, The Great Destroyer. And again, take a look at it. It's available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. It's very lengthy, and it is quite detailed. The war in America, the war on the right, the war on the culture and the values, the war on oil and the economy and business and guns, the legacy of freedom. I want to come back to the culture, David, and what few moments we have left, and ask you this. Is there an all-out war to silence the people of faith through this administration?
Well, probably a little bit strong to say they're trying to silence us, but they certainly don't agree with our values, and they're disrespecting and diminishing our rights. They're conducting what we would consider a war on religion in terms of our conscience rights. You know what Obama's done about people who want to not to perform abortions or to give drugs that could result in abortion. And he claimed in his speech in Notre Dame deceitfully that he would protect the conscience rights. All the while, he had directed his Attorney General and Department of Justice to go out and attack the states that had upheld DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, and would not defend it in court in amicus briefs. It unilaterally refused to enforce the congressional law because, again, this is a lawless executive. And they have militantly supported abortion. Federal funding of abortion, notwithstanding Obama's lie that he would, by executive order, not federally fund abortion. He's done that through the high-risk pools in Obamacare, and he's gotten in litigation with at least 3 states over it. He's reversed the Mexico City policy, which precluded funding groups overseas that advocated for abortion. He has gone to the United Nations and supported same-sex marriage and criticized the United States policy for discrimination against the LGBT community. And he has groveled to Islamists and I think disrespected Israel. He has disrespected Christians, sometimes refusing to go to prayer breakfast, refusing to issue presidential proclamations that had anything to do with Christianity, the God of the Bible, when other people would, when other presidents had. He has defunded, or he has called for the refunding of embryonic stem cell research when Bush had prohibited it, and when it is very controversial morally, and when no diseases have been successfully treated with it. And yet he's reversed federal funding on adult stem cell research that Bush had imposed when adult stem cell research has successfully treated or cured some 100 different diseases or ailments. So across the board, Obama is a radical social liberal, and we're seeing it with the way he manipulated the data on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal.
Right.
He issued a survey, working group survey, and while the survey was out and before the soldiers had been asked to respond, they issued results saying that they'd already responded and said that there would be no readiness and security issues, and it wouldn't impair our national defense if we repealed it. And in fact, the soldiers hadn't even yet been questioned. It's all in my book, The Great Destroyer. Really, it's amazing. And then they passed it through Congress during a lame duck after they manipulated and lied about the survey being done. I mean, really, this is the kind of stuff that you wouldn't see happening at a corrupt city council, and yet it's happening at the federal level by a president of the United States.
A couple things before we run out of time. In the long run, what has he done to our military by doing this and the LGBT? And then, of course, this whole month of June, he's celebrating it. They had it in the White House, and you now, like me and millions of others, saw the disrespect that those people had by giving gestures to pictures of portraits of presidents. I mean, this is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, but that's the mentality that accompanies the radical homosexual agenda and movement. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert. My gut tells me that it's not the best thing for readiness, and that is what ought to trump. We ought not be worried about social concerns and turn the military into a social laboratory for experimentation when its primary purpose is to keep us safe. I think it's an outrage that liberals are able to infiltrate their crazy ideas into all of our institutions. And regardless of what you think about same-sex marriage or gays in the military, you should at least agree that the priority of our armed services should be not the rights of the people that go in, but defending the nation. That ought to take precedence, and they don't seem to That doesn't seem to be their concern because, like I said, they issued the report as to the readiness and the conclusion on the readiness before they'd even finished the survey. And not everyone in the top brass agreed. A lot of the top brass disagreed with the conclusion that there were no readiness problems by, I mean, just ask yourself. I mean, I don't care how bigoted people think I am. Would you like to go take a shower with somebody who is openly gay? How would that feel? How would it make you feel?
Yeah.
No, seriously. And you're in close quarters.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to go take a shower with women, a co-ed thing. And for sexual purposes, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I'm just talking about completely from an objective standpoint, irrespective of what I think about any of it. It just doesn't pass the test of reason to suggest it doesn't have some effect. This isn't to say that gays shouldn't be allowed to serve. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I don't think we ought to be passing over it lightly.
Yeah.
Let's look into it and see what really is the truth about it. Because instinctively to me, it seems to me that there could be some issues. And don't just brush them aside because we're so concerned about political correctness. Yeah. The sensitivity and rights of people who feel that way can be protected otherwise without compromising our national security. I'm not saying it compromises our national security. I'm saying it could. Yeah. And we ought not be dismissive and casual in making those decisions. What's more important under the Constitution than protecting the liberties we have militarily?